In this lecture, we're going to debug a program that contains loops, arrays, and pointers, and we're going to see how our debugging process can really help in seeing what is happening under the hood. The program we're going to be debugging is really not complicated. It is this function here which is going to compute the sum of an array, and we're going to pass that an array and call that in the main function here and assign the result of the function call to the double variable which is total, and we're going to print this out. Nothing complicated. What we're going to do is debug this using the Visual Studio Code IDE, using the tools that come with the GCC compiler. Let's head over to Visual Studio Code and actually do this. Here we are in our working folder. The current project is debugging loops, arrays, and pointers. We are going to grab our template project, but remember that we have set up a debugging configuration in Visual Studio Code. So that's what we want to grab now and update our template project here. We're going to go in our current template project and we're going to delete the folder containing the Visual Studio Code configurations, and we're going to grab the one that came from our lecture on debugging with Visual Studio Code. This is going to give us our launch.json file so that we can reuse it here on. If we go inside, we're going to see that we have our file in here, and this is what we want. So this is what we're going to grab and put in our current project, which is debugging arrays, loops, and pointers. And we're going to open this up in Visual Studio Code. Let's do that. We're going to grab this and drop on Visual Studio Code here. And this is going to open this folder, and we're going to have our main CPP file. We are going to put in the program we want to debug, which contains our sum function, the array we set up here, the call we do to call the function, the assignment we do to the total variable here, and the printing we do of the total variable here. Nothing complicated. It is just a simple function. But what we want to do is to debug this application and see what it does. We're going to set up a breakpoint at this line here because we want to start seeing things from here. We want to see the sum function called. We want to see the activation record of this sum function be to the top of the stack. We're going to see the local variables in this function. We're going to see the loop here execute. We're going to see the sum here returned, and we're going to see things printed out here on the console. Now that we have the breakpoint set up, we can go to our run tab here, and we're going to choose to use the debugging tools coming with GCC as we have already set those up. So we're going to minimize Visual Studio Code here, and we're going to start debugging. This is going to build our program, and it is going to bring up a terminal window. We have seen how we could set this up, and then we're going to bring this to the right here so that we can see things output from our program. Now we have hit our breakpoint here, and you can see the local variables from the main function. The main function is to the top of the stack. We can see that here. And if we want, we can set up watches, but we're not going to use that here. The next thing we want to do is to jump into the sum function here. And we can do that by hitting the step into button here. If we do that, you're going to see that this is going to bring us in a location we don't know. But if we do that again, we're going to hit the sum function here. Now you see that we have the local variables in the sum function. Sum is some junk value because it is not initialized now. Array contains some address. You see that it is the address of the first element in the array, which contains 10 here. We can see that here. You see that the count variable contains 5, meaning that we have 5 elements in this array here. This is what we passed as std size. You can see that by debugging, you can really see the information in your function as it is executing. And you can see that the sum function now is at the top of the stack in the call stack window here. If we hit next, let's do that. We're going to see that the sum is going to become 0. It's going to be initialized. And now if we hit next, we will start executing the loop here, and we will fall in the body of the loop. Let's do that. We're going to hit next. And now you're going to see that I is 0, sum is 0, because we haven't added anything to sum yet. And we have the same information in the array here. Let's execute, hit next. And now sum is 0 because we have added the first element of the array to our sum variable here. After that, we're going to try and execute the second iteration. And now I is going to become 1, as you see here. And then we're going to grab the element at index 1. We're going to add 20 to our sum, and sum is going to become 30. Let's see that happening. You see, sum becomes 30. And now we're going to execute the second iteration. We're going to increment I, and it is going to become 2. Let's see that. I is going to become 2 here. And we're going to grab the element at the second index, which is going to be the 30 here. Let's hit next and see that happening. We're going to add that to our sum. We're going to have 60. I is going to become 3 if we hit next. We're going to grab the element at index 3, which is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, which is going to be the 40 here. If we add that to our sum variable, we're going to have 100. Let's see that happen. 100. We're going to do the next iteration. We're going to increment. I is going to become 4. We're going to target the last element here. We're going to add the element at index 4, which is the 50 here. And if we do that, we're going to have 150 in our sum, and our loop is going to stop executing because now if we increment, I is no longer going to be less than count. If we increment, I is going to become 5, and we're going to hit the end of the loop here, and we're going to return. Now sum is 150, and we're going to return that from our sum function. Let's do that. If we return, we're going to hit the main function again. Now total has become 150. The return value from the function has been assigned to total. It is 150, and we can print that out. Let's hit next to see that printed out. And if we hit next, our program is going to finish executing, and it is going to die. This is really how you can debug relatively complex programs and see things happening in your programs. And try to come up with other examples you can really run through your debugger. And you're going to have chances to learn even about more things than I had a chance to talk about in this course here. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to try and recap what we saw in this chapter. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.